The morning mist still clung to the treetops when the moving trucks rolled into Lakeview Heights. It was the kind of elite suburban neighborhood where the grass stayed evenly clipped and every mailbox matched. Here, time seemed to idle behind wrought iron fences, and the echo of children's laughter carried only on weekends. So, when three matte black trucks marked Executive Logistics pulled into Lot 17 and 18, it was like watching a silent wave crash against a calm shoreline. From her kitchen window, Karen Blake clutched her coffee mug a little tighter. She didn't like surprises. Lakeview Heights wasn't just a neighborhood. It was, in her words, a standard, a symbol of what suburbia should be: peaceful, predictable, and, if she were honest with herself, preserved from the chaos of the changing world. For 23 years, she had lived at 16 Cherry Blossom Lane, where the hydrangeas bloomed right on schedule and the recycling bins were aligned like soldiers every Tuesday morning. This new neighbor, whoever they were, had already disrupted her sense of order. She peered through the curtains again. The trucks were parked with military precision, and workers in matching uniforms moved like clockwork. Furniture, modern, expensive-looking, was unloaded swiftly. No oversized TVs, no screaming children, no clutter. That was unexpected. Then he arrived. A sleek, charcoal-gray BMW pulled up behind the trucks. The door opened, and out stepped a tall, sharply dressed black man in his 40s. He wore a fitted navy blazer over a crisp white shirt, loafers without socks, and sunglasses that looked tailored to his jawline. Even from a distance, Karen could tell he moved with quiet confidence, the kind that made you wonder if he owned the land he walked on, or the company that sold it. She froze, mug halfway to her lips. "Well," she murmured aloud, "this is going to be interesting." By mid-afternoon, the whispers had begun. "It's 2 plots. He bought 2 plots," said Margot from down the street, clutching her yoga mat like a lifeline. "He had them merged. Something about a custom build," replied Allen, a semi-retired dentist who still trimmed his lawn with a ruler. "And did you see the driveway? It's being widened for something," someone added. Karen, never one to be left behind, decided she needed to introduce herself. Not out of curiosity, of course, out of civic duty. She was on the HOA board, after all. She had a right to know. When she walked over, she took careful stock of her appearance. Beige cardigan, pressed slacks, pearl earrings. Friendly, but authoritative. The ambassador of Lakeview Heights. The man was speaking with the lead foreman when she approached. He noticed her immediately and offered a smile. "Good afternoon, ma'am," he said, voice smooth but grounded. "Can I help you?" Karen tilted her head, tight smile in place. "I thought I'd come welcome you to the neighborhood. I'm Karen Blake, HOA board member and, well, something of a community liaison, you might say." "Nice to meet you, Miss Blake," he replied, extending a hand. "James Baxter, but everyone calls me Jay." Jay. Informal, urban. She shook his hand, noting the firmness of his grip. Not arrogant, not soft. She couldn't quite place it. "Well, Jay," she said carefully, "we're always glad to have new residents. Though, I must say, not many people buy 2 lots. Jay smiled faintly. "I like space, privacy, and I plan to be here a while." Karen nodded slowly, tucking away that phrase. "And what line of work are you in, if you don't mind me asking?" "Tech," he said simply. "Startups. I help get things off the ground." There was a flicker of humor in his voice, but Karen didn't catch it. "Well, I hope your new estate doesn't bring too much change to the neighborhood," she said, forcing a laugh. Jay's expression didn't falter. "Change isn't always bad, Miss Blake. Sometimes it's the reason things survive." Karen's smile tightened. Indeed. That night, she sat at her desk with her dog Bentley curled under her feet. She opened her laptop and began researching. James Baxter, CEO, investor, former military? No, maybe not. But there was something too calm about him, too measured. His name appeared in tech magazines on Forbes' shortlist, Angel Investor, Billion-Dollar Portfolio, speaker at MIT. She frowned. She clicked through his Instagram, clean, sharp, pictures of boardrooms, construction sites, smiling interns. A few photos in foreign countries, Africa, Singapore, Dubai. A man of the world, apparently. No family pictures, no clutter. That bothered her more than it should have. She opened the HOA guidelines and began skimming through them. Helicopters weren't mentioned, but she made a mental note, just in case. The following week brought more changes. A crew arrived to begin work on what appeared to be a private helipad at the far end of Jay's property. Karen nearly dropped her binoculars. "A helipad," she gasped, calling Margot immediately. "It can't be legal," Margot whispered, as though speaking it aloud would summon the apocalypse. By sunset, the rumor had reached everyone on Cherry Blossom Lane. Some were curious, some amused. But Karen? Karen was already composing a draft email to the HOA. "While we welcome innovation, I worry about the implications of heavy aircraft disturbing our peaceful atmosphere. Property values may be affected." Later that evening, Karen stood in her garden watering her hydrangeas, pretending not to glance across the street. Jay walked out in gym clothes, earbuds in, nodding politely as he jogged past. She didn't return the nod. He didn't stop jogging. She watched him disappear into the twilight, feeling something twist in her chest. It wasn't fear, not quite jealousy, but the sinking realization that someone had entered her kingdom and was building a palace grander than hers. Bentley whined at her feet. She didn't notice. Her kingdom was no longer under her control. The first time the helicopter landed, it was subtle, at least by aviation standards. It was a clear Sunday morning, around 8:30 a.m. Most of Lakeview Heights was still in its slow-motion ritual of brunch prep, dog walking, and yoga streaming. The birds chirped in orchestrated harmony, and the smell of fresh grass filled the air. Then came the distant whoop, whoop, whoop. Karen Blake was in the middle of arranging flowers in her foyer when the vibration reached the floorboards. At first, she thought it might be an earthquake, brief, strange, and unfamiliar. But as the rumble grew sharper and more rhythmic, her instincts flared. She stormed onto the front porch, clutching her robe and squinting up at the sky. There it was. Descending with almost theatrical grace, a silver and charcoal helicopter sliced through the air. Sleek, modern, polished like a billionaire's wristwatch. Its rotors shimmered under the sun as it hovered briefly over Jay Baxter's plot, then lowered onto a newly paved landing pad at the rear of his sprawling property. Karen stood there, stunned. She wasn't sure what was more offensive, the audacity of it, or the fact that it was done so casually, as though this were an everyday occurrence. "Unbelievable," she hissed. From nearby homes, neighbors stepped out, drawn by the noise. Some shaded their eyes and murmured curiously. A few even took out their phones to film, but no one else seemed angry. No one else seemed outraged. Only Karen. 15 minutes later, she was already typing her first email of the day. Subject: urgent. Disturbance from helicopter activity. Dear board members, I regret to inform you that at approximately 8:34 a.m. this morning, a large helicopter landed on Mr. James Baxter's property. The noise level was excessive and wholly inappropriate for a residential neighborhood such as ours. I'm deeply concerned about what this signifies for the future tranquility and property value of Lakeview Heights. This situation demands immediate investigation. She hit send with righteous finality. Then she opened another tab, FAA complaint submission. Later that afternoon, as the neighborhood buzzed quietly, Karen decided to check in with a few residents. It started with Margot, of course. "I filed 2 complaints," she announced as she sipped her chamomile tea on Margot's porch. "He didn't even have the decency to inform us. No warning, no apology. Who does that?" Margot shrugged. "It was loud, sure, but kind of impressive, don't you think? I mean, who else here has a helicopter?" Karen blinked. "That's not the point." Alan passed by on his walk and paused when he saw them. "Karen's leading the charge against the helicopter," Margot quipped. "Oh, you mean Baxter's? Didn't bother me that much," Alan said. "You know he's building a solar hub in town. I read an article about him. He's actually doing some good." Karen stared at him as if he'd grown a second head. "And since when," she asked icily, "do we accept noise pollution just because someone's writing a few checks?" Alan raised his hands and walked on. "Just saying. Don't get too wound up, Karen." But she was wound up, and no one seemed to see it. No one else remembered the bylaws. No one else understood what this kind of behavior meant. If they allowed this, what would come next? Private fireworks, night landings, parties? She couldn't sit by and watch her neighborhood become a spectacle. By Tuesday, she had organized an emergency HOA meeting. Only 7 residents came, and 2 of them brought wine. Karen stood at the front of her living room next to a projector screen with slides she'd made in PowerPoint. The title read, "Helipads and Harmony, a Threat to Residential Tranquility." "Let me be clear," she began. "This isn't about race. This is about respect, about rules, about maintaining the integrity of our community." There was an awkward shuffle among the guests. "I've lived here for 23 years, and I've never seen anything like this. Helicopters? Really? What are we, Beverly Hills?" Margot raised a finger. "He said he was willing to speak to us. Maybe we should just hear him out?" Karen's jaw stiffened. "It's not about hearing him out. It's about enforcement." Just then, as if summoned by divine irony, the doorbell rang. Karen opened the door to find James Baxter standing there. He wore a charcoal gray turtleneck and black trousers, calm, poised, unfazed. "Evening, Miss Blake," he said politely. "I heard there was a meeting. I thought I'd stop by. Don't worry, I brought brownies." He held out a box of artisan pastries. Karen stared at him as if he were offering a scorpion. "I'm not sure this is appropriate." "I'll just say a few words," he said, already stepping inside. Jay set the box on the counter, nodded at the guests, and then folded his hands in front of him. "I understand the helicopter caused some noise," he said, looking around the room. "That wasn't my intention. I fly in once or twice a month to meet with clients or attend board meetings. My schedule is tight, and sometimes commercial flights aren't feasible." Karen folded her arms. "I've cleared everything with the city. FAA regulations were followed. The helipad is permitted, but that doesn't mean I want to be a bad neighbor." There was a pause. No one spoke. "I'd be happy to restrict landings to weekends during daylight hours," he added. "And if the noise continues to be a problem, I'll look into alternate landing zones." Silence. Karen opened her mouth, then shut it again. She was disarmed and furious about it. Margot cleared her throat. "Well, that seems fair." Karen shot her a look, but others were already nodding. Jay smiled. "And I'm investing in the community, too. We're funding STEM programs at the local school and working with the city council to install solar panels along the walking paths." That did it. The guests applauded. Karen stood frozen, outnumbered, outmaneuvered, outshined. That night, she stayed up late scrolling through Facebook groups and online forums, looking for stories about noise ordinances, helicopter accidents, anything that might reignite outrage. Her fingers trembled over the keyboard, but there were no violations, no accidents, no scandal. Only photos of Jay with smiling kids, cutting ribbons at schools or speaking at city forums. Her war was unraveling, and deep down, she knew why. The following week arrived with unusually clear skies and an atmosphere thick with tension, even if most residents of Lakeview Heights couldn't quite put their finger on it. James Baxter's helicopter didn't land again that week. In fact, the skies remained quiet, but the silence only amplified the whispers. Karen Blake sat at her dining table, a printed HOA letter trembling slightly in her hand. Her frown deepened with every line. In light of recent discussions and developments, we are pleased to announce that Mr. James Baxter has pledged a generous donation of $250,000 toward the revitalization of the Lakeside Elementary Playground and the solar installation project at Willow Grove Park. There it was again. The quiet power of money, wrapped in the language of community uplift. Her eyes fell to the last paragraph. Mr. Baxter has also been appointed honorary community liaison to represent Lakeview Heights in discussions with city planning committees. We thank him for his commitment to our shared future. It hit harder than she expected. She had spent over 2 decades cultivating her influence here, running committees, organizing holiday events, filing complaints, preserving tradition. Now, in just under 2 months, someone else, someone not even from here, had become the face of progress. And the worst part? People liked him. That Saturday, the local news van rolled into the neighborhood. The anchor was young, polished, full of rehearsed enthusiasm. Her cameraman wore cargo shorts and a ball cap. They were setting up in front of Jay's massive custom home, recently completed, glass, wood, and steel, all built with subtle elegance. Jay, in a tailored shirt with his sleeves rolled up, gave a calm on-camera interview about technology, innovation, and local investment. Karen watched from her porch, binoculars hanging around her neck like a weapon of war she no longer had ammo for. Then the camera panned slightly and caught her in the background. She froze. In her robe, arms crossed, mouth pursed. Her dog, Bentley, yapped behind the fence like punctuation. Seconds later, she stormed inside. By Sunday morning, the clip had gone viral on local social media. The caption read, "Tech tycoon builds up community, but his neighbor clearly isn't impressed." The comments were brutal. "OMG, who's that grumpy lady?" Karen strikes again. She looks like she's watching him steal her Wi-Fi. She turned off her phone. Monday brought the monthly city council gathering, now open to the public with optional in-person attendance. Jay had been invited as a guest speaker. Karen, in a rare move, attended too, wearing a navy pantsuit and pearl brooch, her expression set like concrete. She sat 3 rows from the front, arms tight over her handbag as Jay spoke about sustainability, public-private partnerships, and inclusive community design. He spoke clearly, calmly, with that same measured tone that drove her insane. Then came the applause. Even Councilwoman Reyes stood to shake his hand. Karen clenched her teeth. After the meeting, she waited by the courtyard fountain, her heels tapping a slow, uneven rhythm on the stone path. Jay emerged with 2 staff members in tow, paused when he saw her, and gestured for them to give him a moment. "Miss Blake," he greeted. "Enjoy the meeting?" "I have some concerns," she said, chin high. "You've been very visible lately." Jay chuckled softly. "That tends to happen when people invite you to speak. You're replacing traditions with PR." He tilted his head. "No, I'm replacing silence with momentum. There's a difference. I remember when this neighborhood was about simplicity, privacy, order. You've brought noise, cameras, and attention." Jay's voice softened. "Maybe attention isn't the enemy. Maybe it's what allows overlooked things to be seen." She scoffed. "You really think all this charity changes everything?" "No," he replied, "but kindness has a funny way of surviving long after noise dies down." There was silence between them. She didn't know why, but that line stayed with her. By midweek, the HOA voted unanimously to approve a new community initiative, a collaboration between Baxter Innovations and local leadership to provide internship opportunities for high school students. A mural was to be commissioned for the community center. Karen didn't vote. She wasn't invited to the mural unveiling. The final straw came Friday afternoon. Karen returned from the grocery store to find a package on her doorstep. Inside, a letter in the thick cardstock and a pair of noise-canceling headphones. On the card, a simple note: "For the next time I fly in. Jay." No logo, no sarcasm, just elegance and precision. She dropped the card on the floor. That evening, Jay's helicopter returned. It was dusk. Golden light kissed the rooftops. Neighbors stood outside smiling, waving as the craft gently descended like a visiting dignitary. Children pointed. Phones were raised. No one seemed angry. Karen sat inside, windows closed, headphones on. The rotors thumped gently in the distance, a sound that once drove her to fury, now only dulled behind engineered silence. She glanced out the side of the curtain, watching him step out of the aircraft, briefcase in hand, flanked by two community youth leaders he was mentoring. Bentley barked once, then sat down. Karen didn't move. She realized with reluctant clarity that she had lost. Not to noise, not to progress, but to something she never saw coming. A man who didn't fight her, but outlasted her. If this story moved you, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It helps more than you think. And if you want more powerful stories like this one, check out the next video on your screen. Let us know in the comments. Where are you watching from?